Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Like, I know we've technically worked together for almost or a little over 3 years now, and I kind of know your journey and your story, but I wanted to like hop on and retell it and dive in a little bit deeper. Because my goal with these spotlight interviews is to share like the ups, the downs, the good times, the tough times, the lessons, and the tips and tools that have helped you build your thriving photography business and join the top 1% of photographers in our industry who are making six figures from their passion. Because I know that when you're just starting out or you're starting to build your business, it can seem like a really big uphill climb. And I think that getting to hear from photographers who've been through that journey, who've made that climb, can really provide a lot of inspiration and motivation to those of them still building and give them like some key insights that maybe you wish you knew when you were starting and really kind of give them a leg up. So really, just to start off, would love to have you introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, a little bit about you, backstory.
So I live in North Carolina, and let's see, I've technically been a photographer since 2002,
Mm-hmm.
and I started with everything. Babies. I really wanted to do newborn photography. Like that was my jam.
Mm-hmm.
Weddings, lots of weddings and family stuff, and even senior portraits. And then I had a friend that suggested I try boudoir because I got to this place where the spark was gone. I was just like, I can't. I had a regular job too. So I was doing photography plus my regular job, my full-time job. So I had a friend that suggested I try boudoir, and we had one of our mutual friends model for me.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, like after we did her shoot, I was hooked. I just loved to see the transformation.
Yeah.
She was kind of quiet at first, and then all of a sudden both of us were like, yes, like this is amazing. It was so fun. So from that point on, I just kind of I stepped back from everything else, focused on boudoir, but I still did weddings. And then I got to the point where boudoir was just picking up. I couldn't even handle the weddings anymore.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got to where I'm at now with
Yeah.
boudoir.
So, do you remember the first time you picked up a camera?
Yes.
Can you tell me about it?
Well,
Was it like
so
love at first sight? Did you know you wanted to be a photographer and have a business eventually, or was it just start off as a more of a like a passion hobby?
so actually, and it took me starting my own business in photography to actually think back that I was actually into photography long before I decided it was going to be my career. It
Okay.
was in high school. I was obsessed with a Polaroid. I just wanted like the old Polaroid that they came
Uh-huh.
out and you like waved it around,
Yeah.
to get the picture to pop up. So that was my first official my camera, and I took pictures. I mean, I was 15. I took
Mhm.
pictures of the silliest things, like my cat. I
Yep.
was like, let me take 50 billion pictures of my cat, even though the film is like $25 per set of 10 photos.
Uh-huh.
I just kept going. So that was technically my first camera.
Okay.
And then fast forward after high school, getting into college,
Mhm.
I started to do graphic design. I
Mhm.
was dead set that was going to be my career, graphic design. And then I got bored with that and decided to take a photography class, a film
Mhm.
photography class at this local, I don't know what you call it, but it's a little art school, but it's for adults. It's just
Okay.
people that want to, do it for fun.
Yeah.
So the requirement was to have an SLR. So we're
Mhm.
talking film. So
Yeah.
I call my dad and I'm like, Dad, I don't have any money for a camera. And he's like, oh, I got this old camera you can use, blah, blah, blah. So he sends it to me. And I just thought, I don't know. I took this thing out of the box and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I was very overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
All the buttons, how to load the film, had no
Mhm.
clue. So I was kind of scared. But then when I took the class, it really helped me along. And I think taking that class, that first class, just kind of sparked
Yeah.
the interest.
I love that. And your mom, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 kiddos.
2 kiddos. And we'll dive into that in a second because I
Yeah.
really want to get your perspective because I know that it's going to be really relatable for a lot of photographers out there to how do I juggle a business and be a mom at the same time. But when did, like, before we hop into that, when did you decide to take your passion and actually turn it into a photography business?
When I was on maternity leave with my first child.
Okay.
I was about 4 weeks in, and at that point I had still been doing it just part-time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to go back to work. I had this little adorable little person and I didn't want to leave them with somebody else during the day. So I was trying to figure out how to get this going so I didn't have to go back to a retail job. So that's when, like 4 weeks into my maternity leave, it was go time. So that's when I was like, okay, what do I need to do to get this going? And I was like telling everybody, anybody need photography? What do you need? Headshots, whatever it is, let's do it. And my first photo shoot during maternity leave was headshots for my friend's company.
Love that.
So that's what pushed it. I didn't want to leave my baby.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's great motivation. I think a lot of times there is that moment when we're just like, no, I have to make this happen because I don't want that. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go to a job I don't like every day, or I want to feel alive, or, do something that I'm actually passionate about. So, and at that point you were just shooting everything and you would taking anything and everything just to be able to not have to go back to the job.
Yep, I was still doing lighting assistant work for a local wedding photographer,
Okay.
in addition to doing anything and everything. And I did have a little studio at that time too. It was teeny tiny. It was like 250 square feet.
Okay.
So that's when I started just ramping it up. And I mean, I did anything you can imagine. I took it.
Gotcha. Just making it work.
Yep.
What would you say? What?
Needing to pay bills.
Yeah. That's a good motivator.
Yep.
What would you say, because I feel like this is something that not a lot of people talk about, what would you say was the time frame between when you decided you wanted to do a photography business and when you feel like you hit your goal of really having a thriving photography business and making the income that you had hoped you would make?
I mean, that wasn't until, let's see, I mean, maybe you can do fast math, but I had my daughter in 2013, and it wasn't until I started working with you in 2017. So that's how long it took me where I felt like I was making good money.
So 4.5 years-ish.
Yep.
4.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually talked to Julie as well, and she shared too, is like 5 years that she sacrificed, and she worked both her full-time job and her part-time job, and like really, like, I think what's one of the biggest missing like myths or misconceptions is you see people who are successful and you get really frustrated. And even me too, like in the coaching industry, like I see these people who seem really, really successful and I'm just like, why is it not working yet for me? I mean, that I've had a journey not only in photography but in coaching, and it's just about that patience. It's about like really taking the time, and it just takes time.
It does.
To build. And I think that that's something that's not talked about a lot, is the time that it takes to build a successful business and a thriving business, and for it to feel the way that you want it to feel. So 5 years. What do you feel like was, let's see, what was one thing that you wish you had known? Maybe we'll go backwards. What is one of the one things that you wish you had known when you first started your photography business?
Just the pricing. I feel like I would have got there so much quicker if I would have been able, if I was priced properly to make enough to pay for the things I needed. You know what I mean? Just even getting a really nice lens. Like I didn't have the money for any of that. And and that's from really not pricing myself. I was telling a girl yesterday that rented my studio, I said, do you know that I used to charge $75 for a boudoir shoot? That means hair, makeup, here's your digitals, $75. Yeah. You can't get where you need to go with
No.
that. I mean, you're in the hole. You're not making anything. So that's I
Yeah.
think I wish that I would have listened when people were saying raise your prices, or if I would have had the formula to figure out what my prices needed to be, I think that would have been helpful.
Yeah. And you had some experience before you started boudoir a little bit, but I think too, if people are just hopping into photography, there is a time in which you don't make any money when you're like learning and you're practicing and you're honing your skills and you're figuring out your editing style and really building like a powerful portfolio. I liken it to the fact that you may have some money out of pocket, but you're basically working for free in order to build the portfolio. It's like you're not having to pay to go to college for 4 years. You're getting the real life experience, and it might cost you a little bit, but it's not costing you like 50 to 100 grand. And the ROI on spending that time and that little bit of capital like far exceeds like the return that you get. So yeah, I love that. So you said that basically you wish you would have had more information about pricing when you first started your business because you felt like you could have been better off.
Definitely. I just feel like I could have possibly got there a bit quicker, maybe, but back to your point though, I think a lot of people, they try to jump ahead too quickly before they have really worked on their skill set. You know what I mean? I mean, we've talked about that a lot. You can have everything in place, but if the quality of the work is still not there, there's kind of, you can only go so far. So I think that a lot of newbies are like you said, they're not doing that, like working on getting their skill set to match what they want to charge.
What they want to charge. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So let's now hop into kind of what do you feel like has been your biggest struggle about being a business owner and being a mom, and kind of what tools and tips have you found and used that helps you kind of keep that balance?
The hardest thing for me is balancing both home life and work life. I want to be the best at both, and trying to find that balance is really hard. I think things that have helped me are things that are automated. Like that is very helpful, that I don't have to sit there and my CRM replies to people for me. And I just think, and then gosh, just having you guys do all the advertising for me. Oh my gosh, I could not imagine trying to take care of my kids every day and then sitting down and like trying to figure out all of that stuff. That to me is just, I don't even want to deal with it. That's just too much. So that having a team to do that is so worth it. Oh my gosh. And then having those automated systems helps me a lot too.
Automation and outsourcing.
Yeah.
Do you do your own editing?
Partially. I do outsource some of it. So I do have a company that does it. And that's only when I have people that need very minor editing, if you know what I mean. In boudoir, some people just have that glowing skin and they don't need anything.
Yeah.
So I'll send work to them. They'll just do like the minor stuff. And then I do have another lady that will do, like if someone has horrible tan lines or stuff like that, or she'll go in and take that kind of stuff first. So yes, I do outsource, but then I go back and do the final touches on my work.
Yeah. Love that. Any other tips or anything that you've figured out on balancing? Do you have certain days you work, certain hours you work? Have you set any boundaries?
Yeah. And this is, this is a work in progress.
Yeah.
You know,
Always. You always are.
but you know how it is, like
Yep.
trying not to reply to people
Mm-hmm.
every single time they message me,
Mm-hmm.
trying to be like, okay, it's 8 o'clock, get off your phone and,
Mm-hmm.
put your
Be
kids to
present.
bed and do whatever. So I'm working on that though. But I do have certain days of the week that I definitely don't shoot. I don't shoot at all on Sundays. And then something new that I've been doing is only shooting every other Saturday,
Okay.
because Saturday is such a precious time with my family, and my kids are still very little. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's really the only day of the week that all of us are home together. So I
Yeah.
do have a set schedule. I also, I've also stopped meeting people in the evenings.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I just can't do it. It doesn't work for me right now. My kids are in activities that
Yeah.
are right after school, and I don't have the time to meet people.
Yeah.
So usually I'll make them, if they can't meet in the evening, we'll do a weekend.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I think what's interesting too is I want to point out to anybody listening is because I think this is important. I think you're in a space and in a season where you're thriving and you get to set a little bit more of your own rules. If I
Definitely.
hazard to guess that when you're building and you're starting out, sometimes you have to make a little bit more sacrifice. So for those watching who are just starting out, sometimes you do have to like, and maybe it's I only meet on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings so that I can be present with my kids on when they're doing other activities. Um, because to be honest with you, I mean, you're so busy and so booked out that you can kind of be like, no, I don't want to do that. But in
Yes.
the beginning, the people who are booking shoots that have money to pay you are working 9 to 5.
Yep.
And so the only time they have to meet typically is in the evening or on the weekends.
Right.
So I think that's just a good point to point out. I love that you're sharing your tips of where you're creating balance now that you're in that season of thriving and really being able to set your own schedule. But I want to just throw that in there for everyone who's just starting out, that sometimes we have to kind of make it work and set some boundaries, but also understand that to build a business, there's some sacrifices that have to be made in the beginning.
Oh, and this is all new.
New.
This stuff that I'm telling you and
Yeah.
anyone listening, this is new. I've been doing boudoir for over 9 years.
Mhm.
This new boundary thing, brand new. It
Yeah.
literally happened only in 2020.
Yeah. Good to know though, because that's inspiration that once we get there, we can do that. I mean, like same with me, like where how we run our business now and what it looks like now is
Yeah.
only because of 18 years of working 18 hours a day and sacrificing and all of those things. And I think it's one of those things, we live in that instantaneous like world, and social media makes it look like people go from nothing to like thriving in 2 seconds, and that's not always the case. That there's some underlying, and so it gets really frustrating, I think, and just disappointing when we're like, when you're just starting out and you're like what am I not doing right? And it's just like it takes time um
Yeah.
there.
And
Well,
I've seen photographers give up too soon, unfortunately. I see their frustration, and I'm just like,
yeah,
you can't compare,
yeah,
you can't, it's not a fair comparison.
yeah, I would say
Definitely.
that's probably one of the biggest things too, is just
Yeah.
to, and I feel like you've done this really really well, and that is to just create your life by design and not look at everybody else and feel like that you need to keep up. You're thriving in your own like way. You had your goals that you set out, and I see this a lot in photographers. They hit their goals and then they're like, well, this person over here is making more, or they're
Yep.
doing this, or they're having higher sales averages than me and I need to do that. Or and even though you're 100% capable of it, I feel like you've done a really good job of going, you know what? No, like the reason why I did this and my goals were to have a successful business, but also to be present with my kids. That's why I didn't go back to work. Right. And,
Exactly.
and you've done a really good job at like just kind of, I think, putting blinders on, if I might,
Mhm.
and just focusing on creating that. And I think that's amazing. I really, really respect and
Yeah.
honor that.
I mean, I definitely have my moments, so don't
Yeah.
be
Oh,
fooled. There
for
are
sure.
definitely moments where I'm in my head and I feel like I need to be doing everything everybody else is. But then I'm like, you know what? Let's not glorify hustling. Like,
Mm.
let's be present.
I love that about Jenna Kutcher, I think. And I don't know that it was her actual original quote, but busy is not a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I think she actually got that out of a book, but she's the one I heard it from, was busy is not a badge of honor. And I think, yeah, the hustle has been glorified. And I do think there's time and place for hustle, but
Cool.
it, but but also just not getting caught up in that, but getting caught up in creating your life by design and like what
Yeah.
really, really works for you, because everybody's so individual.
Yeah.
What would you say are the top three best resources that have helped you kind of along the way?
The bet. I mean, you guys, hello. I mean, that completely changed it. Just having somebody in my corner. I always use that phrase, having somebody in my corner
Mhm.
has been tremendous. Definitely. So aside from that, I think another tool is the CRM, just having a good CRM that keeps everything in order,
Mhm.
that replies to my clients for me right away. And gosh, I don't know for the third one. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I don't know.
I would say there's going to be another question I usually ask is too, like what has been your biggest, where have you found support? Because sometimes for entrepreneurs just in general, but photographers, I found that maybe sometimes they're more driven than their spouse is kind of more traditional, they want to pursue a business, and then friends and family sometimes don't understand,
Hmm.
like, or even in photography it's kind of like still somewhat taboo to make money and actually be successful, and like, family and friends are like, go get a real job, like you can never make money at, selling your art. And so there's like, how did you find support in building your business?
So actually, my husband is very supportive of it. He
Love it.
has been from the get go. Which is funny because he's got your very typical 9 to 5
Mm.
sitting in a cubicle job, very opposite from me. But he has been super supportive. Even when I wasn't making enough money to afford the new lens, he
Yeah.
would do that. It's like, here's your Christmas and your birthday present. Here's this lens.
I
So you can
love
go forward and like be awesome. So definitely him.
it.
Um, and then I have a best friend that does photography as well. He does fashion photography. And I mean, he is my go to
Mhm.
because, I can be dramatic about things or I can overthink things. And I immediately will text him and be like, this client emailed me this. What do you think she's saying? And he's so calm and just like, well, does she have a point? You know what I mean? He just like grounds me with his responses. It's awesome.
I love that.
And then I think just our whole tribe of photographers is really just so amazing. Anytime I have a question, it's like,
Mhm.
you know, we're not overly competitive with each other. And it's like, well, try this, we'll try that. Well, I did this and this worked. So
Yeah.
I think having family and then, best friend and then having a tribe of other
Good.
photographers. And
Mhm.
because you did boudoir long ago, but people were very competitive, very just around. So now that there's actually a group of us that get along and,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I love it
Definitely.
too. Yeah. So
Yep.
finding just a group of like-minded individuals who are kind of
Yep.
like on a similar journey. And two, I think also ones that if you're just starting out, finding someone who is where you are, maybe mentoring, find a mentor or coach or something like
Yeah.
that. Because while it's good to have like-minded individuals, if you're all in the same spot, I feel like when you're just starting out, and nobody knows how to get to that next level, or you're all feeling frustrated at once. That I feel like, to me, I've left a lot of Facebook groups because I feel like the energy was just not very positive and uplifting, and I totally understand feeling frustrated, totally understand like venting, needing to vent, because heck, that's just a normal part of life and you just need to get that out. But um I think sometimes if there's too much of that, it really just kind of brings you down. So having people who can lift you up and encourage you and motivate you and inspire you, which is what I'm hoping these videos do for everyone watching.
Definitely.
Um, let's
Definitely.
see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to ask you. Is there anything else that I should have asked you that I don't know that I should
I don't know.
have?
No.
um,
I did have somebody message me the other day. We were talking about how there's just this pressure when you're in your 20s that you have to do all these things in a certain order. Like you have to have your career and blah, 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 blah. And this girl says to me, and I say girl, she's not much younger than me, but she's
yeah.
a little bit younger. She's like, I don't even want to have kids yet. And people are pressuring me to have kids, but I don't even want to have them until I get my career going. And then I said to her, you know what's funny is I got my career going after I had kids.
Yeah.
So it can be done,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I
I
think
think,
that's a big thing. Yeah. Like
yeah,
society says you should do this, this, and this.
yeah,
Yeah. But you can create whatever you want to
whatever you
create.
want. Yeah,
I love it.
definitely.
Um, what would you say is like one piece of advice that you would give to other photographers who are just starting out or currently building their photography business?
Well, in terms of if they're learning photography or just
No, I would say let's hop to the business side of it. They're just like they're where you were in 2000 and, well, I guess you started whenever you decided to get really serious.
um oh my gosh, get a business coach, get a mentor. Don't just mm, don't stop making excuses about the investment. Just stop and just do it, because I did that too for many years. I was like, I can't afford it. It's oh my gosh, if this would have been available and I would have had this years ago, it would have helped tremendously. Just having that cheerleader and having that person that can tell you tips and tricks and little things that other photographers, can't really tell you. And I think a lot of photographers do make that mistake. When they need business advice, they go to other photographers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they need to go to someone that's more like
Business.
business minded, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when I used to go to photographers, they'd be telling me stuff that I already knew. And it was like, you're not helping me get ahead if you know exactly what I know. So you got to find someone that knows more than you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a huge tip. And I think everybody's journey is the same. And like, there's sometimes I think I was talking to one of our photographers the other day, and she was like, you know what? If I had met you 3 years earlier, I just wouldn't have been ready for you. Like I wasn't even in a space. Like, so
That's
the timing works out somehow, I think. But also I think just knowing that if you really want this and you really want to make it work, you can fast track it. Because I think there's plenty of people who can build a business over time. I don't think you make as much money right off. Like I think that that takes time and the money comes, and sometimes you can't, I mean, you can't wait that long. So if you're really serious about building a business and an income, then yeah, you got to hop in and you have to have that capital to invest. And I think if you look at, most creatives are great at creating art, not so great at the business side. Hence what like my calling to even be a coach and educator was when I realized that. I was like, oh, light bulb moment. This is where the term starving artist comes from, right?
definitely.
Um, so I think one of the biggest missing factors too is when starting a business, not understanding that you have to have capital to actually get a business going. And it's not just about the camera and the lens, but if you look at all businesses' financials, they all have a marketing budget.
Yep.
Yeah. They all have, like a budget on expenses, and they know what their overhead is, and they know all of these numbers, and it goes right along with what we go over in pricing. But that's one of the biggest things is even like when you buy a franchise, you have to like put the capital in before you even start making money. And I think since photography is like one of the most amazing industries because the initial investment and capital that you have to put in to start a business is actually pretty low compared to how much you can make. Like it's insane. But when you don't understand that simple concept of having to have capital, and I think that's where probably a lot of people get frustrated, is they're just like, I don't understand, and just like you got to have money to make money.
Yep.
And while it feels scary, that as long as you're committed to making it work and it's something you really really want to do, then I think it will always return it. I always tell them, you can have all the tools and system and everything, but unless you implement and actually do the work, it doesn't work. But
Yeah,
love
I wish
that.
someone would have told me that the whole you need money to make money, because I kept going, it's like being in a hamster wheel. You're just going and going and going and not getting anywhere. And that's how it feels when you're starting out and you don't have those systems in place and you don't have somebody on your side to kind of be like, hey, this is how you need to budget. This is how you need to price yourself. When you don't have that person, you're just spinning your wheels, really.
Yeah. When I first started doing boudoir and decided that's what I wanted to do, like exclusively, I spent 6 months doing every type of photography shoot I could get
Yep.
and working with my husband in junk hauling and demolition. I mean, I was out in 110-degree weather, 100% humidity, tearing down mobile homes covered in like insulation and filth and painting and like all kinds of stuff just to save up the money in order to launch.
Yep.
And I think not everybody talks about that part, like the the hard stuff that goes into it, and it's very rewarding in the end though. So
Yeah, definitely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Mm, not really.
Not really. Yeah, I think we covered some great content. I love that you shared about being a mom. I think that's really important and very relatable.
Yeah.
And that you can do both for sure.
You can, and there's some weeks where, like the end of this week, mommy needs a mommy break, and I'm going
Yeah.
somewhere to get a break because it's just a lot. So there's, but you know what? I'm learning now too is like delegating stuff more. So when I anticipate those weeks where I have a lot of crap going on and I have a bunch of shoots, I'm like, okay, what can I delegate? What can I push off to somebody else?
Yeah, I love that. Well, I like the tip too that you just said actually with self-care.
Yes.
Taking some time for you. Like
Yes.
that sounds like a really big tip for moms and even anybody. I'm not a mom, but even me, I need some alone time
Yeah,
and some self-care.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. We forget
for
about
sure.
we forget about that too. And I think women in general, we're just I feel like we're just natural caretakers
Mhm.
of everybody else, and then our needs are last. So, that's something that's another thing I'm working on, putting my needs out there too.
Yeah, making them priority.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's going to
Thank
be
you.
inspiring and motivating for other photographers. So have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
too.
Thanks,
It was
Sarah.
good to see you. Bye.